Yep, had quite a very different upbringing between what's now called Barunga, was then called Bumili, Aboriginal settlement in Arnhem Land in the Northern Territory, northern New South Wales, and eventually to outer semi-rural parts of Melbourne to Geelong, Barwon Heads. In between, I had 26 years based overseas as well. But yeah, my start in life was really. Well, it was unique in a lot of ways, I suppose, which kind of, we are a product of our environments, right? So maybe I'm pretty unique as well. But I didn't know any different. You just grow up and that's what it is. And there was my mum, there was my dad, there was me, and that was sort of it. We had a dog called Woofer, which I'll come back to later. And when you grow up in a place like that, I think, and especially in the country, there weren't many. In the Aboriginal village, I was very young, so I don't have great memories of it. But after that, when we lived in northern New South Wales, my nearest childhood friend lived 5 or 6 kilometres away on a dirt road, and so all I had was a bike, so all I knew was riding my little 16-inch BMX to wherever. And I used to see snakes and all sorts of things out there, and I suppose it was pretty unique. But that eventually led to trying in different sports, soccer, cricket, and things, and then it came back to cycling. But I sort of fell into cycling in a way. It was more just to independence, transport, riding on the weekend, visit friends and things. But I pretty soon found myself, rather than go and visit my friends from school, that I'd go and ride my mountain bike to visit my mountain bike friends, and we'd go mountain biking and riding, and it really started there. And small level races, and then a dream started, and it probably still hasn't. I'm still working towards that now. So in my coming through year 8, year 9, I suppose I sort of lost my way, as a lot of teenagers do in terms of school. Wasn't interested, didn't perform academically very well for a period, and then I fell into cycling, and all of a sudden I sort of gave up on my social life, because all I wanted to do was train, and I understood I had to finish school, so all I would do is study, homework, train, and that was my life. I stopped watching TV, and that was actually the start of quite I suppose, what created quite a disciplined life, where still today I don't watch TV, not because I don't like it, but just because I think there's more productive things to do with your time. But that started back then, and it really I suppose that was the start of a time management and a process to performance, and probably slowed down my social interaction with people or something at a certain period of my life. All my friends are going out on the weekend to do whatever, parties or whatever, and I was going to bed early because I'd go training on Saturday morning, or be travelling to a race somewhere Saturday to race on Sunday, and be travelling home or something. So I was very concentrated, just riding and just school. And then I did school, but of course when you go away 6 weeks before the final year 12 exams, you're missing something. I took all my textbooks with me, but I won't say how little they got opened in that 6-week period, but I did get a silver medal at the World Championships. My results when I was younger, in my teenage years, when I was going to high school, and that sort of stood out, I suppose. I was a junior racing with the seniors, winning in the seniors, and then going to the AIS and being selected for the national team. That was really my bridge to racing overseas, and my thing was to be noticed by a professional team and taken up by a professional team. When I first went to the AIS, it was a selection camp for the eventual national team. This was all being built towards the Olympics in 1996. Mountain biking was its first year as a medal event in the Olympics, and of course to go and compete in the Olympics. And I suppose my goals was as much as the Olympics, but becoming a professional as well, because a professional was in a career beyond that. But in that testing and selection process, we saw certain values and qualities. I was still very young and still had a lot of room for development as well, which is probably a big part of it. But I like to think, as a rider, I always searched I had a certain amount of talent and a certain amount of which of course gives me a certain baseline of which I can get results from, but I'd like to think that I utilised all of that talent as best I could in nearly every situation I raced, and that was, I'd like to think on my career, not just having that amount of talent, but utilising it, and not just utilising it once or twice, but nearly every time I pinned a number on and getting it all out on the results sheet that day, which is which is a skill and a process kind of underestimated in cycling at least. I don't know for other elite levels of sport, but certainly in cycling there's some people who have enormous talents, but they only get half of it out or 3/4 on there. They still get good results, but then there are other ones with not much talent, they get everything out, and so if you put that more talented run with that ability to get everything out, you'd have an incredible athlete. From a young age, one of my friends who I used to mountain bike with would come to my house and watch the Tour de France in the early 90s. And it kind of planted a seed in my head watching Miguel Indurain winning in the early 90s. That was one side of it. I had this fantastic coach, Damien Grundy, who'd come from the road to mountain bike, and he always had this thing, include road cycling, not just as part of the preparation for mountain biking, which is going to help, but then also maybe one day in the future you want to be, it gives you opportunity to road races, stage races, particularly multi-day road races, are great training for the mountain bike, but also they're training for maybe the future career on the road. So he always had this in the back of his mind as well. So that was part of it. In terms of the actual, when the switch came, I was racing mountain bikes full-time professionally, and in between the mountain bike races I would go and join the under-23 national team in Italy and race with them. So I was kind of doing a bit of base work, but also training for my mountain bike races, but also doing base work for a future career on the road. And it wasn't that I fell out of mountain bike. I think my mountain bike team fell out of love with me. And a road team, Mappe, funnily enough, Mappe had the biggest road team in the world, and they approached me and said, "Oh, would you like to come and join our team and develop as a Grand Tour rider?" And at that point in my career, for me, it was a dream to have one professional career in sport, to become a professional mountain biker, to have a second opportunity to be a professional in sport, have a second sporting career that was above and beyond. So, of course, I took the opportunity, and like most opportunities the sport gave me, I took them and tried to get everything out of it I could. When I started on the road, I'd already done some races as an under-23, and I'd raced 1 year with my professional road team. So I'd done a lot of the races before that I went to. So to come back as Tour Down Under in 2000, when I was full-time, 2002 was the first Tour Down Under as a full-time professional. I'd ridden the first Tour Down Under as part of the national team, and I suppose that was one of the first races with like elite pros that I'd done, because I'd been racing under 23s then, and it was funny. I think it was one of those, I can't remember what year it was, but I was introduced they have like a team presentation or presentation at the rise of the race, and Phil Liggett presented me, "Oh, this is Cadel Evans, the mountain biker who could one day maybe win the Tour de France." And I kind of remember that the established road pros come from Europe, heard this and understood it and laughed as if, what the hell. But I always remember that, and that was, must have been in 99 or 2000, I think, and anyway, and then I came back later with Mappe and won stages and so on. But that was, I suppose, that was the first race in Australia with professionals. When the opportunity with Mappe Quick Step came up, they were the biggest team in the world, and I was actually in the biggest mountain bike team in the world, Cannondale. And they came to me the night before the World Championships in 2001 in Lisbon. I remember I didn't sleep at all that night, because all of a sudden I had this whole new future ahead of me, and I was really excited about the whole opportunity, to be honest. And so I didn't ride very good at World Championships, of course. But from there I came back to Australia after that season, the World Championships being at the end of the season. Soon after, I came back to Australia and started to prepare as a road rider. So lots of distance, lots of endurance training, long rides and so on, to try and basically you're going from a 1 to 2 hour event to a 200 kilometre to a 3,000 kilometre event. So obviously the physiology is a bit different. And so I was trying to sort of speed this up as quickly as I could to be ready for the road races, professional road races in Europe with the Mappe team. And I was I think I was probably the second or third rider to transition from mountain bike to road. And interestingly enough, the first one to do so was my roommate at the Giro d'Italia in Mappe, Dario Cioni. Working with Aldo Sassi was, for me, it was, I'd had this fantastic coach in Australia, and Damien Grundy, who we started when I was like 15, 16 years old, and gone all the way through to Olympics, World Championships, and in mountain biking. And he was helping me prepare for the road races in the under-23s, but then going to a professional team, you're obligated to work with the team's coach. One thing, absolutely no disrespect to Damien in any way, but Aldo had a whole world of experience with working with the professionals and working in the top races, and that was a huge help for me, because while I had the physiology to do the race and I knew for the most part what I had to do in the race to do well, I didn't know the races. I didn't even know in a 3-week race. I'd never done a Grand Tour, and that's just a completely different, not just physically but mentally, concentration-wise. There's just a whole realm that I'd never even explored for myself, which Aldo helped me through with that, and I had some close teammates like the ex-mountain biker Dario Cioni, but Professor Aldo Sassi, the biggest thing with working with him, although I didn't understand it at the time, basically he was 10 years ahead of his time in terms of where cycling was going, what he was studying, what he was researching, his training principles. And although I didn't know that in 2002, I was quick to realise that a few years later, and now the more time passes, the more that's just reinforced. Professor Aldo Sassi had a holistic approach. We're just looking at all the details, the total rider. And this was before the time cycling wasn't working with like psychologists, but with MAPE, you went there, you did your training, you did your position, you did the race program. Everything was looked after by one group of people. Even most of the foreign riders, I was outside of this, but they had housing for people, and they had this lady who used to come and buy them pasta and things. And it was for the young foreign riders in the development team that they had. I wasn't a part of that, but they really looked after absolutely everything, which was, really just ahead of its time. It became quite the norm 10, 15 years later, but at the time, that whole team, and Aldo himself was criticised by the sport for this, which is kind of disgruntling, frustrating to say the least, because now everyone's sort of copying what he was doing, or 10 years later everyone was copying what he was doing. Yeah, the 2002 Giro was, I count myself still as a neo-professional, because I was still within the first year full-time on the road. One thing with the Giro d'Italia, the Tour de France is sort of the pinnacle of the sport, but for an Italian team, the Giro d'Italia was actually more important. So already to be selected as a neo-pro to go to the Giro d'Italia team was already unheard of in that team. And then here I was under secret instructions on the side. This is our team leader, Stefano Gazzelli, previous winner of the Giro d'Italia. Just stay there on GC in case something happens, And sure enough, things happened. And the second last day in the mountains, I rode into the third last day in the mountains. Third last day of the Giro, second last day in the mountains, I rode into the lead, into the pink jersey, which for a neo-pro and everything was really quite remarkable. For me, everything was new, everything was exciting, and going back to, it was my first Grand Tour, so I was tired, mentally, physically, I was tired, but I'm riding a 3-week stage race, and I'm at the pointy end. This is normal. I didn't know how tired I was a big part of it. And so the next day, which was this epic long day, I think we hit the last climb with 7 hours or so racing in the legs. And I didn't even know, but I was so motivated on doing the race and what needed to be done that I'd actually gone hunger flat before. I'd exhausted my fuel levels, and I'd been eating and things, but I was on this sort of like, your car's run out of fuel, but you're still rolling. You can put more fuel in it, but the engine's already sort of cut out, and you're not going to get it started again, basically, was sort of the process. And then I've hit the last climb in what became what we'd call the biggest hunger flat in modern cycling. The amount of people who have come up to me since then and said to me, my mother, my aunt, my grandmother was sitting on their couch crying for you that day. It's been phenomenal. I suppose I won a lot of hearts in Italy, but for me as a racer, I lost the lead of the Giro d'Italia, which was one more Grand Tour that I would have liked to have had in my resume. But the whole process was the whole experience was amazing, and especially everything, all the mess that had gone on the Giro within the team and things, the injuries and ejections from the race and left and right was to be able to, my dream was to do the time trial into Milan in the pink jersey, which was actually the head office of MAPE, which would have been, couldn't quite make that dream come true. Yep, so cycling is, road cycling can be described as chess on wheels. It's very tactical, always something happening. So as sit in the peloton, I'm looking around, who's in front, who's behind, who's nervous, who's not nervous, what are they doing, why are they tightening their shoes up, why are they taking their raincoats off, There's a valley coming up. They've got a scout car in ahead. There's crosswind. There's always something happening. But this is sort of probably years of experience speaking. But basically, you have in a race, cycling is an individual sport, but it's also a team sport. Usually all those individuals are working all the members of a team are working for one individual who has the best chance to win. That's your plan A. Okay, this guy's our leader, we're going to take him here, and the best way to win this race is in the case of my 2011 Tour de France, George would always take me in the final through the sprints because he had a lot of experience. He knew the other sprinters' teams, he knew when to expend some energy, when to go out in the wind, expend a bit of energy just to stay safe because there's risk of crashing. But he's like, oh no, it's okay, come on, we'll stay here, save energy. Because basically riding the Tour de France or any bike race is you're either in the wind, safe, but expending energy, or you're in the wheels, not quite as safe, but saving energy. But the more energy you save, the more energy you have later to win the race. And that's basically what we're always trying to balance with. And then you've got your teammates around you. Maybe they can all take you out of the wind and you can save energy and be safe. You need a strong team to do that. And that's where Marcus Bulgart, Quinciato on the flat, they would just take me up and avoid crosswinds when you need to be in front, move up to the side when the peloton's moving at 6k an hour and you're in 100th position to move up to 10th. Takes a lot of energy, but if you've got some teammates to do that, then you're in a safe place and there's a crash behind you or something happens. Then that's their job as teammates. A couple of occasions in 2011 Tour de France, mechanical puncture or something like that. I'm behind the peloton, they've got to get me back to the peloton, and that's where they get me back to the peloton. There was one stage in Britain particularly, they got me back to the peloton at 8k's to go or something. George took me up to where I needed to go, and I won the stage still, despite changing my bike at 20k's to go or something. And but that was perfectly executed teamwork. One thing particularly, someone like George Hincapie he had a lot of experience. I think he rode my 2011 Tour de France, I think was his 10th Tour de France winner he'd ridden in a team with. So one thing you have, that gives me confidence because he knows what to look out for. But the big thing for me was all of a sudden I had a guy who had as much or more experience than me as a set of eyes just to look out. And with him and my teammate, when he was there by my side, I could actually switch off during the tour, which for me was something totally new. Switch off mentally and just, okay, save energy because like physically, obviously the Tour de France or something is very hard, but mentally, people don't understand, it's absolutely exhausting because you're always concentrating. You lack of concentration, you hit a traffic island at 50k an hour and your season's over. So you're always playing with that, trying to save your mental energy as well. And here I was with George, and George is like, no, watch out, I know these guys. He sees them pulling up their socks or something. Okay, they're getting ready to do something here, and he'll take me up, and sure enough, there was crosswind or something, and that was just George to a T. But also just on touching on the athlete, individual athlete, team athlete thing, psychologically, I remember asking this question to one of the first sports psychologists I ever worked with about an individual and team sport. That's a very difficult question. But when you're racing as a cyclist, maybe you're there with your team, or maybe you're not even the leader, and your leader crashes, and then 1 second later, oh, I'm the team leader now, but you've got 5 minutes to the finish or something, and you're switching mentality between individual sport and team sport every minute, maybe every 30 seconds. And you really have to switch between that, and it's kind of unique. Yeah, that's certainly pivotal, sort of pivotal probably to my career in the end as well. The big thing going into those two stages, I'd been in that situation on a couple of occasions before at the Tour de France. When you're there and win, lose the Tour de France, it's up to you. And I've been in that situation before, which sort of really, well, I lost the Tour de France in 2007 in the time trial. I didn't make up the time expected. 2008, same thing. 2008, I was in the same situation on Alpe d'Huez with, funny enough, one of Frank Schleck's teammates, not his brother though, but another one, Carlos Sastre, and I was in the same situation where I had to chase, but going back to what I was saying before, I'm sort of trying to go up to this, but of course I can't get away from the group who's with me, but they're not going to help me because I'm helping them. Tactically, the strategy of the race is I sort of got to bring the group back to bring myself back to be close to the rider who's threatening for me for the overall. No one's going to help me because no one wants to help me win the tour. So I've got to sort of do it all on my own. But at the same time, I've got to close this gap. But at the end of the race, I've still got to race everyone that's with me for the final, for the stage as well. So in 2011, having had this, and for once having the legs that I needed to do this, having a good day, unlike 2008, which was for me the single hardest day on Alpe d'Huez. 2008 was the single most difficult, physically hardest day on a bike of my life. I had the legs to do it, and I could see the others were psychologically also a bit beaten, and so I sort of tried to close the gap to Andy Schleck, knowing that I could take a lot of time back in the following days. It was the next day, 2 days later, time trial, and he knew that as well, as he was trying to take as much energy as much time on me heading into that time trial. But his teammate, who's his brother, is on my wheel, who's also one place behind me in classification. So it was a kind of bizarre situation, but having been in this before, I did my best to get as close as I could. I knew in my mind what I needed to do. In that case, my team had to sacrifice themselves on the valley before, so I didn't have any teammates, and it was a bit of a strange situation. And the yellow jersey on that day, Thomas Vockler, he would rather lose the tour himself. It cost him a podium place in the end than help me win. Because I said to him, "Are you going to help me?" He's like, "You are the king of the tour now. If you don't want to win, if you don't want to be on the podium," because his teammate, actually, he was the only one that had a teammate, and his teammate wanted to help me, but he couldn't. Pierre Roland, couldn't. Anyway, a strange situation. But this is, even elite sport. Sometimes you're there, and you could be in the U7 or 8 class, snick snack, whatever, and egos and things. It's kind of the same thing, really. And then in the end, I'd for the time trial 2 days later, which was the ride into the second last day of the Tour de France, but my entrance into the yellow jersey was something, a race going back to the individual side of the sport, something I'd prepared for very well. This is my mountain bike background. These are the tyres I'm using. This is the gear I'm taking on that corner there. I'm taking wide out there, turning in late. That corner there, I have the course reconnaissance course notes, which I'm getting through the radio like a rally car driver gets. 90% hard right, stay on the aero bars or whatever, and I had everything just ready. So in my thing, when I started there, I've done everything I can to do the best time trial I can, and we're going to do this. And we had the BMC made this custom bike. I had all the competitive equipment, which in the past I'd been a bit hindered by in that particular discipline of the sport, and everything was just right to go. And I went, and when you get the first time check back in a time trial, and you're taking in 4Ks, you take back 20 seconds, and you're like, well, I've got 36 more kilometres to take back, more than enough for the rest, so just go. So the Tour de France is 3 weeks long. And I'd come twice second by less than a minute. On two occasions I'd come second in this race. It's like more than 80 hours by less than a minute. In percentage terms, that's pretty small. And so this time, so when I'm riding the time trial and I get the first time check after 4 kilometres or something, and that's positive in terms of in my advantage, that's when for me the satisfaction starts. It's like, okay, all these years of work, now it's looking like it. Let's go. But I don't celebrate till I cross the line in Paris. It's not that anyone's lost the yellow jersey on the last day, but people have lost stage races on the last day. I knew someone who crashed 4 kilometres or something for the finish of their last, which was the only stage race they're going to win in their life, and they get taken out or something. So I don't celebrate till I finish the line. So while I'm doing the time trial, in my mind, okay, that's got it, but we still got to get the yellow jersey to Paris. So in the race, I suppose in the time trial, I'm getting this good, really positive feedback for me in terms of, we're taking time back. Okay, we've moved into yellow. We've got a buffer, but you still got to get to the finish line. You can still come around the corner and something's on the road. Someone's dropped a pamphlet or something on the apex of the corner, and you can still, anything can go wrong at any time in a bike race. So anyway, so get across the finish line. I suppose crossing the finish line there, that was a moment for me, and no one was around, and I didn't jump off my bike and jump around or anything. I just wanted to take it in, reflect on it and appreciate it, and then of course the same thing. Get this yellow jersey to Paris and we'll celebrate. And that was like cross the finish line, and the images were actually played in the images of us crossing the finish line and hugging each other. George, Marcus, Quincy, Bourgie, Steve, Amail, these guys, us hugging each other on the finish line in Champs-Élysées was played in the Super Bowl halftime show that year. On the cycling side of things, first the 2008 World Championships were in Varese, just over the border from where I live, 14 kilometres away from my Swiss home base. The finish line of 2009 was 2 kilometres from where my Swiss home base was. And then here in Geelong, the finish line was 20 kilometres from what for me is home, Bowen Heads. So I thought, well, I can get one of them right, surely. I would have loved to have won again in Geelong, put it that way. I didn't even compete in Varese because of a little bit, had to get things set up. There was some team things going on there. But that was to get ready for 2009, I suppose. But the Tintin was this. I picked up a book in the library one day, and it was Tintin, the Black Island. It had a boat on it, and I like boats. I'm like, I wonder what this is. Nice boat. I may as well read the book. And I started reading it, and I read one and another. And anyway, this guy became my idol as a childhood idol. And he was just brave. He was clever. He was politically correct. He was just everything that we sort of aspire to be, I suppose. And I had a dog. He had a dog. Years later, I had a little dog, and years later I was living in Switzerland, and I just remember there was this image I can't remember which Tintin book it was, but he's walking back from the shop with a baguette on his shoulder, and his dog's walking along in front of him, and years later here I am walking along with a baguette on my shoulder, my dog's walking along in front of me. I'm like, I'm sort of living my childhood aspirations to go to Europe, and of course my goals were different because cycling was what took me overseas. The big part of it was before I even left Australia or ever went to Europe, I always had this interest and curiosity and desire to live in Europe, which really helped me in my career, because a lot of people from outside of Europe, you have to go to Europe to be a professional road cyclist. They go there and they're good riders, they love the racing or whatever, but they hate living in Europe, which is a bit disadvantageous, because if you're going to be there 10 months of life and it makes you miserable being there, it sort of affects your performance. Whereas for me, it was part of the adventure, and I also later took on a particular interest even before going to live in Europe, Italian food and culture particularly, and still have that to this day. And that's really helped me to be there. And it's certainly part of me. My home is always here in Australia, Bowen Heads particularly. But that was just, I look at it as what a fantastic experience. I got to live in another country for another year of my life. My kids don't know whether they're speaking Italian or English sometimes. It's just been a fantastic experience. I missed some calls this morning from the Swiss bank at 2 a.m, but I'll get back to it. My arrival in Bowen Heads was kind of a bizarre story. The first times that I came to Geelong regularly was to ride the Bay Criterium series, these early season races organised by John Trevorrow, and they're in Geelong, Port Arlington, Torquay, and one day there was a race in Bowen Heads. So I went out, did my training in the morning, and I get to the race an hour before, and I'm thinking I'll find a coffee shop, I have a muffin, a cup of coffee, and I'm sitting there out the front of Starfish Cafe in Hitchcock Avenue, Bowen Heads, and I'm sitting there. I reckon I could live in this town, and I think this was in 1999. And funnily enough, about a year or two later, a friend of mine had bought a house down there, and there was an opportunity came up to buy in a unique part of Bowen Heads, and I thought, probably this is an opportunity that I can't afford to pass up, and that's still home today, actually, 25 years later. And it sort of started almost by accident, but I have to say, for me, going over to Europe, coming back, having my base here has been, obviously it was I always said, as a traveller, home is where my passport is. But my true home, the one place where I want to, if I had to decide one place to spend the rest of my life in, of course that was Bowen Heads. So for me, that was my home. And fortunately, my wife decided one day, I'm sick of this, let's go and live in Australia, it's much better. I can make this happen. And here we are. I think travelling the world is, it's a great opportunity. I think we all have to do it to learn and understand and have perspective. But it looks at mental health, community, strength. The sense of being is so important to our long-term health and longevity. The blue zones around the world. This is one common denominator amongst all the blue zones in the world. And not being so young, I try to inform myself about these things. But I I think in Australia, or having lived in Europe, they have a much stronger sense of community and where they're from because they stay much closer. Whereas in Australia, we're a younger country like America, we move around a lot, work and things. And I suppose having lived all around the world, or not all around the world, but travelled around the world a lot, I sort of see this as more and more important. My mother's not so young, and so now I see it like she has this fantastic strength of community where she lives down the Great Ocean Road. And it's been a lifeline for her, I suppose, in some ways. But that's, it took many laps of the world for me to find this out, and here I am back again after all this time. There's one thing also, when we travel to other places, they all seem great because we go there as visitors. To go and live in another place, that's where you see a different perspective of it. When I was coming to the end of my racing career, there was a lot of things going on in my life outside of the racing that I didn't know which direction I was going to go in, but then this initiative came from what was then Victorian Major Events to host an international one-day race for tourism promotion and various other reasons. And I'm like, well, that'd be great. We can actually do a lot more with that, which is where I wanted to include the women's racing, the people's ride, a public ride, and then later on we also included the children's ride. So I'm like, well, okay, we've got the best in the world men's and women's mammals like me, from 80 plus years down to 15, but then below that we've also got these 2 and 3 year olds on training wheels or something being part of it. And then I'd like to think as well for mums and dads, they can bring their kids down, whether it's they go to their front gate and watch the race go past their farm or house or wherever, and be inspired, be entertained. That's great. Maybe we're inspiring some little kid standing on the side of the road one day. Some little boy, some little girl one day. That's for me is my dream, that someone sees this race, falls in love with cycling, becomes a cyclist, comes back and wins it. But for me, from being a professional cyclist, being concentrated on everything within the barriers, the racing, and this, all of a sudden I was becoming, my involvement here as being a race organiser, I was involved in everything outside of the barriers, which has been fascinating, but it's also for me my way to give back to the sport that's given me so much in my life. It's a way that I can hopefully give back to the community, and when we speak about the community, sense of being, I certainly feel with the help and support we have, whether it's from the local councils, the local businesses, international businesses, and those involved. And in 2026, we're going to have every World Tour men's and women's team here, and it's going to be like the most competitive field we've ever had, to have a one-day race that draws the eyes from around the world to our region. I'm very, very proud of that. Certainly, for me, seeing the sea of riders in the TAC People's Ride at the start here, where about 3,500 people lined up to do the ride on Saturday morning, for me, that's just fantastic. Funnily enough, this comes off as I come to the end of my career, so I'm no longer in the World Tour peloton, but I'm just riding, and for me that's a day where also cycling is sort of is for everyone. Maybe some people put Lycra on one day a year, but that's maybe the day that they do it, and they come and do it, whether they do a 60k ride or a 100k ride. That's a ride we do in a safe environment to enjoy being a bike rider, to enjoy the region, to be a cyclist. Then I always get, for me, real goosebumps moments, whether it's the start of the women's race or the start of the men's race, when the national anthem's being sung and we're sitting out there and the sun's normally shining for us. The sun's shining, we're looking out over at the Corio Bay, they're singing the national anthem, everyone's light up and everyone's in complete silence, all the spectators are there in complete silence. I'm like, wow, this is a big deal. That's really a moment for me that's of particular highlight. I have to calm myself a bit in that moment. And either the men's or women's or both, they're always really exciting, unpredictable finals, and that's where the cycling fan in me comes to, what's going to happen? Are they going to stay away? Are they going to get caught? And that's also a very, very exciting moment, and what I like to think is a great send-off of a week. I'd like to think I'm a promoter of cycling. I don't want to be an activist because they're sometimes a bit aggressive, but my thing with cycling is, if anyone's quality of life can be improved by riding a bike, I want them to know that and have that available to them. My biggest fear of promoting cycling is I'm a father as well, and having accidents and being on the road, that's my biggest fear, and that's a big part with TAC, whether it's education, driver education, because in the end most fatalities in cycling happen because of collision with a car. And sometimes road infrastructure can help that. I think the biggest thing is driver education. Of course, I'm a driver as well, so I like to think that I have a clear understanding from this of both sides. But I think Geelong, it's amazed me, and I think we're just on a process. But when I used to come down here in the late 90s to ride the Bay Criterium series, and when I came to Geelong, I went to De Grandi's the first time I was thinking about this riding in here today. I had to buy a tube or something, and it was just up the road from the hotel we were in, the first De Grandi store that they had, and I had to go down and buy a tube or something. And now here I am 27 years later or something. Simon Gerrans has bought my local shop, Hendry Cycles, and it's what a journey cycling in Geelong has made. And it's also had a history before then, before John Trevorrow, and it had this amazing history. But I'd like to think we can continue to be the cycling hub of Australia. I'd like to think that we can become in the future, and that's something I'm working for. But that's, we have Baum over in North Corio, Partington's just moving out to the Corio industrial. So we have these amazing manufacturers, we have amazing stores, and I think we can just continue to be there. And Geelong's history as a city has been transport, logistics and things. And well, I don't know what they're all doing in other places around Australia, all these other companies, but you should come to Geelong, it's much better. It's a bit windy, but it's much better. I'd certainly like to. If I do it though, I want to do it well, and it takes a lot of time. There was this great team being run out of Tasmania, which was the best sort of development in this for both males, females, mountain bike road, some of the track riders as well. Unfortunately, that team sort of came to an end because the person behind it, the time, its energy, and it's not very rewarding. But yeah, Andrew, I'm sorry that he had to stop, but he's got priorities in life. But I tried to align myself with that. But by the time I came back here to be useful, the team had stopped, and it's something always in the back of my mind. And whether it's a permanent facility that we have here in Geelong, or a development team beyond what we have with the race, but a development team for young riders. That's what we need, I think, right now going forward for bringing future talents to Europe professional ranks. But I'd like to be involved. I think we have an enormous variety of facilities, and not just built ones, but natural facilities. To ride on the Great Ocean Road is just fantastic. The Great Ocean Road, maybe there's 1, 2, 3 other roads in the whole world that are as nice as that. Some of them have a lot of traffic on them, and you want to ride on them anyway. No offence, Costa Malfiana, but beautiful road, but a lot of traffic. We have the wind. Windsurfing is probably the best sport for the month of October, November this year, but to do down here. But we have such a great variety of. I suppose we have a variety of also terrains, and the development of the Anglesea Scout Park, the Yangs, the trails there for mountain biking and riding off road has just been amazing. I raced in the Yangs as a junior in the 90s, and to go back there now, it's like all these trails everywhere. This is just heaven. We have all these amazing sporting facilities, and I suppose Geelong's also unique in where we're big enough to be a city, but we're small enough to be a community as well. I think the Geelong Cats is evident of that, and the support they have behind them. That sort of we're quite unique in that realm. Outside of my own race, because probably the real most, like the start of the ride's a personal satisfaction, but we had a final 2 years ago in the women's race where in one frame on the TV you could see 1, 2, 3, 4 all spread out in the 3K to go down here. And I was like, oh my God, this has never happened. This is the most exciting women's race ever, to watch on TV at least at that moment. That was like, I have those little highlights. Mara Schmid going away solo, as I would have wanted to have won the race. Finally, after 10 years, someone went away before Melville and stayed away. But on a sporting, I can probably reflect on a few things. There was one. It's kind of insignificant, but John Trevorrow could tell this story better than I could because he exaggerates more than I do. But I was riding a round of the Bay Crit series in Geelong. I just can't remember which circuit it was. But anyway, there was a breakaway there, and the bunch was going a bit slow. I'm like, I might go across to the break, and because I want to do a race and be part of the race. And And so as I've gone to bridge across to the break solo, the break has caught the bunch. So they've lapped the field and then the bunch has let them go. And so here I am on my own sort of 3/4 of a lap behind. So I've caught up to the bunch, of course, but then I'm still in the race. So they've sort of like, well, quick, go through. And I've gone up to the breakaway. So I've sort of had to lap the field on my own behind. But I think Phil Liggett was commentating as well that year. And they're like, who's this mountain biker? What's he doing? Oh, maybe he's a bit more than a mountain biker. That was probably one, because that was a moment, at the time I was just doing my race, doing my best, doing what I could, but it was sort of a time in the world, a little bit for me. I knew what I could do, but it was also like, oh, maybe this guy can do something more than just mountain bike. And that was probably in, it would have been 96 or something, I reckon, 95, 96, somewhere around there. Didn't win those two Tour de France in 2007, 2008. Didn't win that Giro d'Italia in 2002. There was a stage on the Commonwealths that I let Geraint Thomas roll away from in the end. In the 2010 Tour de France, as an athlete, I always want to win more and do the best I could. And sometimes I made a tactical error, or was a bit unlucky or something. There was a lot of those, but no, I have to say I always looked at cycling as a window of opportunity. I wanted to make the most of that, and that's what got me out of bed, not every day of the year, but most days of the year, to go out and do my best, whether it was training, racing, and that window of opportunity closed when I crossed the finish line here in February 2015, and I was cramping and coming in for 5th place in the first edition of the Great Ocean Road Race. But I was like, I gave my all, and one thing for me was I didn't want to close my career with regrets, and that's what motivated me to work hard in my career, to not have regrets. And yeah, of course I wanted to win more races, but I also won a lot more than I sort of originally set out to achieve. Funny, when you don't have to perform like the best in the world, going out and riding your bike's much easier to enjoy. Because every time I went out training, my training, and this is going back to Professor Aldo Sassi, my coach at MAPE, he's measuring them in the lab. You're in a controlled environment. You know, on that day I've got a test, and I'll try and do the test as best I can to see what level I'm at. But then all your training is based off the results in that test. But it's not that riding up the road in the snow and you're worried about some payment or something, you know, any life stress that you can have, which as a bike rider, of course, you have as maybe not as many as everyone else, but you have these things that affect you in doing your job. It sort of doesn't take much to not be able to perform like one of the best in the world in those situations. And it's hard to enjoy riding when every day it's just about that number and this goal and this power and this volume and things. So now I just go out and ride, and I think I remember one day I did a race on the Sunday, 250, 270k or something race in Belgium, caught the plane home that night, and next morning I'll go for a ride. And I'm riding along near where I was based in Europe, not very fast because I'm totally exhausted. And the car goes past me and says, "Oh, God, you don't look like a pro rider yet." And I was like, "Oh, okay, thanks." You're not riding like you're a pro rider. But then I was riding along that same stretch of road after I retired, and the car passed and said, "Oh, how great to see you out on your bike." And it's like, obviously I hadn't done this exhausting race and travel the day before, but it was sort of, I suppose your perception is, you come second at the Tour de France, oh, that's a failure. It's actually a pretty good physical achievement. Now I'm going out and ride by, oh, that's just a pleasure for me. And that's the expectations of people, I suppose, is probably in sport what weighed on me was everyone just whether it was the team, and you going to a press conference and at the Tour de France, and are you going to win this year? I hope so. If I don't break my arm or someone doesn't take me out halfway through the race or something, you have these expectations, but they're with you 365 days a year almost. So that as a professional athlete, I think is probably what weighs on you the most, and to not have those that weight on my shoulder makes everything more enjoyable. Geelong, for me, the whole region, I'd say understated. I remember one said, Barwon Heads, for me, the thing that attracted me most about Barwon Heads, obviously we've got the nice shops, the nice restaurants, the river, the beach, the parks, but the thing that probably is the standout attraction for Barwon Heads for me is the people that live there. It attracts a great mentality of people with a great mentality. And whether people have had huge successes or modest successes, they're happy to be there, and they're just happy just to go on their life. It's not ostentatious. It's not. There's not a lot of bling, but people are just happy for, I suppose, that quality. I think they have good. It's about the quality of life, and people are focused on a good quality of life, and rather living a good quality of life, not showing that they have a good quality of life, which I think is a big difference from sets it apart from a lot of other places in the world.